The presentation, you may submit it online by clicking on the Q&A tab located on the right-hand side of your screen. Make sure it's the Q&A tab and not chat, so we have your email address in case your question warrants follow-up reply. Simply type your question into the dialog box at the bottom of the screen and send. We will attempt to address your questions during the presentation. After the formal presentation has ended, we will review and answer all remaining questions. Your presenter today is Alok Somani, front-end web developer at OmniUpdate. Alok, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Erica. I hope you guys are all doing well today. Today we are going to be talking about custom gadgets, something that I do work on occasionally here at OmniUpdate, and something I hope to impart some knowledge to you guys about. So let's get started. First, on the agenda, we are going to be talking a little bit about the purpose and possibilities with custom gadgets. We are going to be talking about the requirements, some of the files and libraries needed to make custom gadgets function correctly. We're going to do a little bit of work with the configuration, which is the config.xml file that you use to determine what settings OU Campus will see for the gadget. We're going to cover a little bit about the HTML and JavaScript required for a basic gadget. And we're going to be talking about gadgetlib, which is the library file that we expose to allow you to interact with OU Campus. And then other additional API possibilities through OU Campus and through something we call the metadata API. Now, I do want to point out before we continue that this presentation is primarily to get you introduced to the concepts, and then we will be going through a small demonstration to kind of see it in action in OU Campus. So let's take a look. First, the purpose and possibilities of a gadget. A gadget is a self-contained full mini application within OU Campus, the purpose of which is usually to extend the functionality of OU Campus in ways that OU Campus may not provide directly to you. The ability to create a custom gadget allows you to add what you believe to be pertinent functionality. Some of the possibilities, there are limitations, technical limitations, because the gadget does exist in an iframe. An iframe is going to be self-contained, and it's not going to have direct access to the main application context. This is just based on web standards. But what we can do with it is any logic that we include in the application, any JavaScript that we create, will function on its own, and you can create a full application. You also have full use of the OU Campus APIs. You will still need to use your API access token separately, but the gadget will manage its own token for you to work with the metadata API. And the metadata API is fully exposed through the gadgetlib, something that we'll look at a little bit more closely. Whatever context that we don't have access to due to the fact that it exists in an iframe, we do allow interaction with via the gadgetlib using the web post message API. So you've seen gadgets in our application, and here are some examples. We have bookmarks, which is built with the metadata API. Notes gadget, which is some fan favorites. It allows you to save notes specifically to pages so you can communicate with team members. We have the assets gadget, which allows you to review or search through your assets, see what they look like in these previews, and insert them directly from the gadget to your editor. And then the quick publish gadget, which, believe it or not, was actually created at a conference, at an OUTC conference. So the requirements for gadgets mostly comes down to file structure and necessary files. We have the library files, which include gadgetlib. Gadgetlib is available as the unminified gadgetlib.js or available as the gadgetlib.main.js. Generally, we recommend starting with the unminified version so you can actually peruse the code and understand how it functions if you are familiar enough with JavaScript. Or you can go straight to the gadgetlib minified file, which will remove console logs and still function. So jQuery is a required library with gadgetlib. Gadgetlib relies on jQuery to function because it uses jQuery deferred objects. The gadget itself consists of two required files. There's the config.xml. This is a standard XML format file with options that OU Campus has specified to allow you to configure your gadget. When you enter a gadget URL to point to your gadget, you're actually pointing to the config.xml file because this is the main configuration file for your gadget. Then we also have the index.html file. This is the standard index file, which contains your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript. It can be separated out if you like. As I said before, when you are pointing to your live gadget URL, you are pointing to the config.xml file. So the index file can be broken up into index.html. You can have an app.js file. You can have a separate CSS file. All files have to be hosted online. They have to be available from a URL. One of the great things about using OU Campus to manage your content is you can actually publish these files through OU Campus. That's something that we'll be demonstrating today, something you can take advantage of to help you get your custom gadgets off the ground easier. So, looking into the config.xml file to start with. It has standard XML structure. We specify the gadget configurations that we want, and this must exist. It is what OU Campus reads to display the gadget. Index.html file. It's the main application file, contains your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Configuration, we're going to go into a little bit more detail about config.xml and what it offers. So the standard XML entry would be something like this, where you enter a key, which is going to be the option, and then the value. Some of the options that we have available include title, which is the title of your gadget, an icon to specify the small icon in the header of the gadget, description, which when you manage your gadgets will tell you what this gadget does, thumbnail, again, when you're managing your gadget, it'll be a thumbnail image representation of what you want for the gadget. Types, which allow you to specify where the gadget will be available via whether sidebar or dashboard. Sidebar context, this one is interesting. It allows you to actually make your gadget only available in specific contexts. One of the most common use cases for this is when editing a file. You'll want your gadget to only appear when editing a file. Notifications, because you don't have direct access to OU Campus, what we do is some of the common notifications that, or some of the common events that occur, like publish or copying files or moving files, generate notifications that will pass on to gadgets that are listening for them. So in your config.xml, you can subscribe to various gadgets or various notifications. Initial height, when your gadget opens, this configuration option tells OU Campus what height to display the gadget at. And then HTML and JavaScript. Let's go over some basics here. It's a standard HTML document. We are going to include style sheet links at the top. We have to include our third-party JavaScript source scripts, which include, as we mentioned before, gadgetlib.js and jQuery. And this is important with gadgetlib.js. Another reason why it is integral to how gadgets function is because it manages your token for you, your access token. So when you interact with OU Campus, this is what validates your session. And that session lasts for about 30 minutes. API calls from gadgets require access tokens and environment details. So GadgetLib is a library that we provide that handles those environment details, sets up the access token, which deactivates after 30 minutes of an activity. And it provides a global gadget object as an API to interact with OU Campus. This is something that we'll explore as we look at the technical aspect of this. And in that gadget object, we will see methods that we can use to interact with the metadata API as well as other utility functions. Some of those methods, or some of the most commonly used, some of the most sought after methods, Gadget Ready is required. What it'll do is it'll let you know when the gadget object has been fully instantiated and when the access token is ready for you to continue using the gadget. OUC get current file info. This gets you all the pertinent information about the current file that you're viewing. OUC insert at cursor. This one allows you to actually interact with the WYSIWYG. So wherever the cursor is in the WYSIWYG, you can actually insert whatever content you like. OUC get current location, which gives you your current browser location, and OUC set current location, which allows you to actually navigate to a different page in OU Campus. The GadgetLib also provides us with methods to use the metadata API. This will include your standard CRUD operations, so create, view, update, delete, list, and as well as others. But these two examples show you what can be done with the metadata API. These are gadgets that we've built and made available to you as system gadgets, bookmarks, and notes. So we can go over a little bit more information about the API, because other than the GadgetLib and metadata APIs, we also have OU Campus APIs. OU Campus APIs you have seen hopefully on developers.omniupdate.com. We actually have revamped the API documentation for your betterment. This tells you the calls that are available, like this users list call, as well as what the response looks like so you can handle that data. It also tells you what parameters are required when sending the API request. There are resources available, and these links hopefully will be available to you. There's the Gadget Starter GitHub page that we have, which gives you your basic starter files for gadgets, as well as a lot of good documentation on how to use gadgets, notifications, etc. We'll go into a little bit of detail with that. And then OU Campus APIs, as I mentioned, at developers.omniupdate.com. Erica?
Yes, so Well, this is for the end of the presentation. So if you want to go into your demonstration on OU Campus, then we can come back to this later.
All right. So what I am going to do is I have OU Campus open for me over here. This is the dashboard, and I also have some starter files that I've created. So we're going to go into the process of actually adding a gadget to OU Campus, so you can see the configuration process, the setup process, and then we'll go into a little bit of functionality there. So one thing I'm going to do is I want to go to my pages list, and the way I recommend usually doing it is if you're going to host the gadget through OU Campus, I'm going to create a folder to house all my custom gadgets. So I'll start by creating a folder called custom gadgets. Perfect. Go into that, and now all of the gadgets that I create, the custom gadgets that I create, are going to require those same library files that I mentioned, gadgetlib, jQuery. I also tend to use Bootstrap with my gadgets, so that's a library file that I usually include as well, or CSS file, I should say. But point being, I don't have to upload those files for every single gadget individually. I can actually create a separate folder here just to house those library files. So I'll create a new folder. I'll call it lib. Well, I'll create my library files. Then what I have here on my desktop is training gadget. So this is something that we can use for today. But in here, I have these lib files. If you can see, I have Bootstrap, I have gadgetlib, and I have the minified version as well, and then I have jQuery. The version of jQuery that we're using here is a little bit older, 2.1. It hasn't been, gadgetlib has not been fully tested with jQuery 3, although I've tested a little bit on my own and it seems to function well. So if you do want to use jQuery and you want to use the latest versions, that should be okay. But what I'm going to do is just drag and drop these files in my lib folder on OU Campus. Sorry. Wow, okay. Having some problems with Mac here. All right, I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, upload. Add files, desktop, and I have training gadget started. Actually, I'm going to go to lib. And these files are the ones that I want. Select all of these, open. There you go. Start upload. Okay, great. These files have been added. I also know that I want to use the starter files for my training gadget. So what I want to do here is create a folder for that training gadget. I'm going to call it training gadget. And I'm going to upload these files. Starter files. Perfect. Now, in order for me to actually add this gadget through the setup, one thing that needs to happen is all of these files that I just added need to be published. So I'm going to go back up to the top level. I'm going to check mark custom gadgets folder, and I'm going to publish everything inside of it. I want to make sure to include checked out files in case any got checked out. I'm going to publish. Perfect, 7 files were successfully published. So this is where we can look at the setup menu basically for gadgets in OU Campus. You'd have to be a level 10 user to go here, but you go to setup and you go to gadgets. This shows you all the system gadgets as well as any custom gadgets you've added. We're going to add a new gadget, custom gadget, and we have to have this point to our config.xml file where it is going to be live, and it's published, so it is going to be live. For me, that is going to be on asomani.oudemo.com in the custom gadgets folder. And we're going to do the training gadget. Again, because we're pointing to the config.xml file, you'll want to add that slash. Great, it found it. So it shows us this menu. Name, URL, types. Types is sidebar right now because that's what our config.xml file shows, as you'll see soon. And we're going to make this available to everyone, might as well. And I'm going to leave it to default on and save. Should see the training gadget here, perfect. You'll see a C in type because it's a custom gadget. One thing you'll want to know is that anytime we make changes to the config.xml file and republish that, we will have to come here to refresh. That refreshes the configuration. If you make changes to the index file and republish that, you don't have to refresh here. So let's go here. Let's go back to our custom gadgets pages. I'm going to see if the training gadget showed up. Yep, it showed up. And we have nothing there, obviously, right now. Let's look at our files. Config.xml. All right. So right now we have a title of training gadget. We don't have any description, and we have type sidebar and initial height no value. Let's do this. Let's give us a description of training examples, and let's give it initial height of 200. Save that and publish. Perfect. But I also want to do another thing in the meanwhile. I want to go to the index.html file. Look at this. Source code for this. Okay. A couple things to look at here. Some basic stuff that I had set up. The title, which is not important. It's not read by anything. We have the bootstrap minified file, which I included in the library, linked here. We have some basic CSS using border box for the elements that we create. We're importing the jQuery library, and then we're importing the gadget library after jQuery library. Then we have a body setup, which just has a div with an ID main. And what you'll notice here is this div is required if you're going to be editing your gadget source code in OU Campus in this editor that you see. It prevents OU Campus from adding a direct edit link in the gadget itself. That you'll see this in the gadget starter documentation as well. And then I did mention that the gadget object will have a ready method. We use this ready method to do something after the gadget object is instantiated, so we know that we have an access token if we're doing something that requires the access token. Then what we also do, because it's loading in an iframe, is we'll handle any jQuery or any web events using jQuery after the document is ready. But I did want to do something here already, actually. I know that for testing purposes, I want to create a button. That's it, just a button. So I'm going to do, and I'm doing this live because I find that it helps people kind of understand the structure a little bit better. Otherwise, we do have sample gadgets, we have custom gadgets that you can use and see the structure of. So I'm going to give you a button. I'm going to give it an ID. Let's call this main action. I'm going to give it a class of button primary. This is Bootstrap, so I know those classes exist there. And I'm just going to call this action. Give it a little bit of styling. Do action width of 100%. Give it a height about 30 pixels, and I'll start it at about 185 pixels. Hopefully my math is correct there. Oh, no, sorry, 85 pixels. Okay, save this and publish it. Refresh the page. And this is the dev console. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar or comfortable using the dev console, but it's very useful in any browser that you use. This browser specifically is Chrome. It allows us to interact with our application a little bit more easily so we can understand how things are functioning. The reason why I bring it up is you'll see this button here. Okay, you have an action button, perfect. The action button right now does nothing, so we haven't given it any functionality. But we should take a look at what functionality is exposed. As I mentioned, the gadgetlib file exposes a gadget object. If we were to type gadget in the console here, what would it give us? Okay, gadget is not defined. Reason why is because our context here is still the window, it's still the parent. But because the gadget exists in the iframe, we have to change our context, which we can do here in the dev console, to our gadget, training gadget. And if I type in gadget now, it should give us an object. Perfect. Awesome, look at this. So this lists what is exposed via the gadgetlib API. We have some information, site, skin, or token that was generated for this session, which, by the way, if I'm inactive for about 30 minutes and I try taking an action through the gadget, through my custom gadget, I'll get a 401 error because permission will be denied. The token will no longer be valid. Just an FYI. I see the URL for my gadget, and I see these methods that we were talking about before. Get current file info, get location, get WYSIWYG content. Perfect. There's some getters and setters. Metadata API. This is something we also mentioned. So if you are going to use the metadata, which is great to use, it's actually a free-form document-based API that we have, or database that we have, that allows you to create your own data, your own data to store in the database. You can specify the MIME type yourself, so you can create any number of different data points. And we have the methods available for that: create, delete, linking. which is something that we haven't discussed and is probably outside of the scope of this conference. But linking allows you to link metadata with specific objects in OU Campus, like files or groups. And then other CRUD operations here. Cool. So one that I found is something that a lot of people like to use is OUC insert at cursor. This is what allows you to enter content of your choosing into the WYSIWYG editor. Because we created this action button here, I want to link it up to that. So I'm going to actually go into edit our index file itself here. Oh, you know what? I didn't refresh this after I changed config.xml. That's why the height is messed up here. So I'm going to go do that first. I'm going to go to gadgets, our training gadget right here. I'm going to refresh that. And let's see if that'll do it. No, I didn't publish that file. So I'm going to go to custom gadgets here. Training gadget. I'm going to publish all of this. Okay. Then I have to go here. And refresh this. Perfect. Now that should look a little bit better. All right. So going into our index file here for training gadget. I want to add some functionality. So I created a button with an ID of main action. And I wanted to actually do something. Here in the script is where I want to create a function that will be available to me. So I'll call this function, let's do insert in WYSIWYG. I'm going to pass it content, and what I wanted to do is use that gadget object that's going to be available here. So I'm going to do gadget.OUC insert at cursor content. And what I have to do is I need to add a click event listener to that button. So I would do something like, it's the ID of my button, it's main action. So main action on click function I am going to call my insert in WYSIWYG method, and I'm going to pass it just some sample text. Let's do just some sample text, just to test this out. And save that and publish it. You'll see that error because it loaded this view right here, which doesn't have the gadget object. But I need to go to a page now that has a WYSIWYG editor, so we can test this out. So I'm going to go to, refresh. I'm going to go to academics. I'll use this file, study abroad. I already checked that already. show my gadgets. Again, remember I did say before that you can actually specify sidebar context, so you can have some gadgets show up only in specific contexts. Like notes shows up only when you're editing a file. If I went back out to pages, notes disappears because the pages list. If I go into the page, the notes gadget appears. You do the same thing with the training gadget or whatever gadget you create. I'm going to open up the Just Edit editor here, and let's put my cursor right here. That's where the cursor is. Technically, if I open my gadget and I click Action, boom, okay. It just put my content into the WYSIWYG. It would also work in the old WYSIWYG using the APIs that are available. That's great. What other things could be done? Well, let's take a look at this. I have over here the gadget starter documentation, the full documentation. And this gives you a really good idea of the possibilities that we have. One thing I want to show you is, I don't know how many of you were at the conference, the OUTC conference in 2017, but the custom gadget that we created there was a to-do list, which is standard, but it gives you a good idea of the self-encapsulated functionality that you can do at OU Campus. So what I want to do is I want to actually add my to-do list application to OU Campus. I'm going to go back to, just to demonstrate mostly the metadata API and the extent of how much you can build on an application. Custom gadgets, and I'll create a new folder here for to-do list. I have files for this as well, also on my desktop. To-do list package. These files for to-do list, by the way, should be available to you guys. You guys can ask Erica about that, or support. They should be able to point you to them. So I have my to-do list final files. I am going to upload them here. I'm going to go up to desktop. To-do list package, to-do list final, and these files right here. Now, the purpose of this is to show you guys what a full gadget might look like. A custom-built gadget, by the way. Something that you guys can build. We'll publish this, include any checked out files. Perfect. We will go to gadgets. We have to add the to-do list gadget here. So HTTP, my URL, custom gadgets, to-do list. That should exist. It exists. I want to make this available to everybody. I have a description for it already. That's what fills in here. Personal Task Manager. I'm going to save. And to-do list shows up here. I have an icon specified for it as well. And if I am to refresh the page and look at it, to-do list should exist. Look at that. This is a to-do list that would allow me to add a new to-do. It would allow me to mark one as done, delete it if I want to, or I could edit it and change it. This is all built in OU Campus. I actually built this using our editor here. If you look at the index.html file, source. By the way, all those notifications I'm getting, it's because I'm using the unminified gadgetlib file. Other than the CSS that I have for the to-do list and the HTML, then we have this JavaScript. So you'll notice I'm taking advantage of the gadget ready method. In this case, when the gadget object first loads to fetch the to-dos. The fetch to-dos method uses the metadata list method. As you can see, the information that I need to pass to get the list of metadata is just the MIME type. Now, when you're using a lot of the methods exposed via the gadgetlib, metadata specifically, it's going to be using deferred objects, so because it's an asynchronous method. So you're going to call the method, and then you're going to have to specify a then or done to handle it after a response is sent back, or after it's resolved or rejected. And then, after receiving this list of metadata via the metadata list call, I use the render to-dos method to actually show your to-dos. With that, I can do all the CRUD operations. I have create, delete, update, and then I'm using the same format here in document ready. I'm adding all my event listeners to check for the add button being used, to check for an event listener, to check for the delete click, edit click, and for typing to get the value of the input. So a lot can be done with just this custom gadget API that's available. The reason why I wanted to show that to you before moving here is to show you the other possibilities. When you look at the gadget starter documentation, you have full documentation about the config.xml file, all the options that are available here, the title, icon, description, thumbnail, types, sidebar context, as well as a table showing the different sidebar contexts that are available. You can have it open only when you're in Just Edit. You can have it open when you're in the page parameters view, when you're viewing an asset, file, anything that's available here. Another thing that you can do is when we're talking about subscribing to notifications, these are the different notifications that OU Campus will pass down to gadgets that are listening for them. So you have when an inbox message is received, when a workflow message is received, when a page is recycled, when zip files are uploaded. There's a lot of possibilities here. I strongly encourage you to use this documentation as kind of your starting point for your gadget, because it'll give you just about the best chance of building the most complete gadget that you can build. I think with that, I've covered pretty much what I've wanted to cover, and I hope that answers a lot of your questions.
So yeah, if anybody has any other questions, now is the perfect time to send them to us. If there's anything else you'd like to know more about. All right. Well, all right. Well, while all right. Well, if there's no other questions, then I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this Training Tuesday. The date of next month's Training Tuesday in January is going to be the 30th in the new year, 2018. Stay tuned for what topic we'll be covering. We're still working on getting those set up, and we're planning a lot of exciting things for the upcoming year of Training Tuesdays. And as always, you'll see that information on the OCN and the support site soon. And all the files from this presentation, including the PowerPoint slides, will all be hosted there as well with the recording of this video. So look for that by the end of today or tomorrow. And that will all be up for you guys to look at and reference. And if there's no other questions, let me just do one final check to make sure. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, just computer windows. Okay, yes. So we have two questions. Andy Bell says, are there additional files needed on the back end to tie into Google Analytics? Alok, I don't have the answer to that. Alok, do you know for sure?
I don't have the answer to that. I know that Google Analytics should be possible. I believe without backend tie-ins at the moment, but that's something that I can talk to our backend team about and see if there's any configuration that would need to happen, and we can get back to you on that.
Okay. And then Julie Fosberg says, are the to-do gadget files available to us? Yes, Alok, if you will have those files up and hosted with the video and the presentation slides for this so that you can access them. And then Brian Speller says, you mentioned a find and replace gadget. Where's the find and replace gadget example?
Not sure about that. I did not mention a find and replace gadget.
All right. Okay, and all right, I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Everybody, this is your last chance.
But Brian, we'll look into the find and replace gadget if there's one available. I personally have not used it, so.
All right, well then, I think that concludes this month's Training Tuesday. Thank you everybody for attending, and I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. Thank you and have a great day.